And we are live.
Thanks, Stacy. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of council for September 14th. I am going to call the meeting to order. You have before you a copy of tonight's agenda. I am looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Duford, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Thanks. Motion carries. Item number 3 is any declarations of interest. None being noted. Moving on to item number 4, announcements, awards, ceremonies, and presentations. I would like to do out a shout out to Bowden Farms. I happened to go out there this weekend and it truly is amazing to see acres and acres of sunflowers like that. I encourage anybody who hasn't to get out there and see it. And I want to thank Anne and Pete Bowden for sharing this with our community because it really is incredible. Anything further from council? Nothing noted. Administration?
Thank you, Worship. Nothing from administration. We do have a presentation later on the strategic plan update.
Thank you. Item number 5 is administrative inquiries, and I'm going to pass that back over to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We'd like to start this evening with the update from the Director of Protective Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. So currently for the month of September, as of today, the department has done 28 ambulance calls, 2 false alarms, and 2 day home inspections. Current updates, the Fire Smart contribution agreement was submitted to E&R. We had some troubles with our man doors over here at the department, so we brought in a technician from DanMax in Yellowknife to do some repairs on the doors. So doors are back up and running. 1 panel was replaced, and 1 more operating panel probably need to be replaced down the road. But right now we're functioning with most of the doors. The PPE order that was submitted for all town departments arrived late last week, and I'll be sorting through it for all the different departments' orders. We also have our SCBA tanks. Their hydrostatic testing date has come up. That needs to be done once every 5 years. So I had Public Works help us create a shipping container for the tanks, and that's done now. So I'll be looking to send those tanks out this week and start cycling them through the department in Yellowknife. Medic 1 will also be going into the shop tomorrow to have the emergency brake spring looked at. And today I also ordered some Fire Prevention Week materials for the kids this year. So that's on the way. Department training. Last week we worked on hydrants in town. And this week we'll be working on training with our winter operations for medical equipment like rescue air, just to prepare for the winter months coming. And I'll hopefully be writing my 1021 fire officer exam this week. So it's good that it's finally in. That's all I have for updates.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for our Director of Protective Services? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I know he mentioned it, and I know it's in his report today, but the fire smarting, can you just elaborate what we're doing there and where we're doing it?
Yeah, no problem. So the project that was approved, we submitted 4 projects. The major project that we submitted, the first priority was getting the continuation of the fire line, the widening of it, just like the previous year's funding started the project but didn't quite finish it. The funding ran out. So this would be the funding to finish that fire guard and protect that western side of town. So that project was approved. The other projects they didn't have the money for this year, but they did said if there was any leftover funds, they'd be interested in pursuing the other projects that we presented. They came to town, did a walkthrough inspection of the other projects we proposed, and they liked them for leftover funding or even for next year. So good things.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Further, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just that line you're talking about, that's one at Donnery Ballpark and goes out towards, goes south, I guess. That's the line we're talking about, is that I don't know what they call it, Two Seasons Road, I call it, but and then, yeah, it goes out towards the bush.
Yeah, so it'll continue on from the hospital, and it'll continue on to the lagoon. I can send you a map too. We have it all mapped out, and the hectares it'll be and everything.
Thank you. Anything further for our Director of Protective Services? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just to comment on the on the railway line, on both sides, there's a lot of bush that's growing, and the access way to the hospital, you know, you can't really see much if you're driving to the junction. And so both, you know, I'm just wondering if we can get a hold of CN and get their, you know, get these trees cut down or bush cut down on either side of the track, because they are growing quite a bit. Just one of the comments. I've got another one, but I'll let you comment on that first.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, for sure. I was driving there an hour ago and was thinking the same thing. I'll be getting in touch with CN to get them to trim that down for us.
Further, Councillor Anderson.
Okay, thank you for that. And just a note on the vagrant population in our town. It's gone, so there was 10 emergency calls last month, and that's up from 5 last year. And I happened to be driving down the Mackenzie Highway a couple of weeks ago, and there was a gentleman passed out on the side of the road, and it took 2 RCMP cruisers, a fire department. So it ties up a lot of resources, and plus the fact it holds up the traffic considerably. It was a busy time and so forth. So it put you know, the RCMP in jeopardy, as well as the emergency services people, and it takes away how would we phrase it? It takes away, you know, things that, you know, they could be working on other things besides this. So I'm just concerned about the amount of resources we're spending in this area, and I just would like to get comments on that, please. And coming up to the winter too as well, what are the plans for looking after folks in this position? Thank you.
I'm not going to pass that back to our director. I know that we have been working diligently, and it is going to take a partnership. We're all well aware of the vagrancy problem that we have downtown. As a matter of fact, I have 2 meetings set up this week in regards to it, and we have a working group that involves health, RCMP, MLAs, myself, so anybody that's involved with the population, persons with disabilities, housing, the whole 9 yards. So hopefully, again, I'm going to reiterate, we're all aware that there is a problem. Hopefully we can come up with a solution that works for our community. Thank you. Anything further? Deputy Mayor Bouchard, go ahead.
Yeah, just Councillor Anderson was talking about the railroad crossings and stuff, and I know there's one that I've heard on social media, and I drove across out by the fish plant there on going into 553, which is pretty rough, and I know there's been timbers there all summer. If we're reaching out to CN, can we just get them to double check all those crossings? Because I know that one's particularly rough, and it's, like I said, the timbers have been sitting there to be replaced all summer, and I'm not sure if it's just short of manpower or what, but if we're reaching out to CN, thank you.
Duly noted, Deputy. Go ahead, Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. Those timbers have been there probably since at least all of last summer and possibly into the fall before that. There was a chunk of railroad steel that was sticking halfway up out of the ditch there one day that was going to get somebody impaled, and I actually went and moved it once, and then I see it's back again, and there's another one on the other side. Yeah, I don't know. CN was down in the old town, and they changed the crossing down there last week, and I don't know, it looks like that truck's gone out of town again, so I'm not sure. Hopefully we can get a hold of them, but that crossing over by the fish plant, there is like someone's going to lose a tire on that here pretty soon. There's railroad spikes coming right through it.
Thank you. SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. Just a bit of an update. We have been contacted by CN. I know they are planning to do some work, I believe, on that crossing by the Rooster that Councillor Doe is referencing right now. But we can send a message to them as a request. It is on their property. But yeah, we can pass on the concerns.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? Nothing noted. Back to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We will go next to the Director of Finance and Administration.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of brief comments from Finance. Tax reminders being sent out on overdue accounts. We are also reminding residents that September will be the first month that we will be charging for paper billing for utility accounts. So any utility customers that wish to avoid this charge, please contact the town, provide an email address to receive e-billing free of charge. Community enhancement grant application period is now open, so any interested community groups are encouraged to apply. From a work perspective, work shifted to the 2022 budget. So we reviewed the budget schedule with the Finance Committee at our last meeting. As we've had very low attendance from the public in the previous couple of years at our community outreach for the budget presentation, this year we're going to change things up a bit and prepare and release a survey in October to allow a different avenue for public input and feedback. Beyond that, got the Q2 capital and O&M financial statements before council this evening. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any questions for our Director of Finance? None being noted. Back to SAO Smith.
Thanks, Your Worship. We'll go next to the Director of Recreation and Community Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone. A few operational updates to begin with tonight. We are in the shoulder season, as I've mentioned before, transitioning from summer outdoor facilities and programming to and preparing the community center facilities for the fall and winter season. The aquatic center has reopened last Monday to the public after our August annual shutdown. The major maintenance work that was happening during that time was a conversion of our pool pumps and our hot tub pump to variable flow drive via some Arctic Energy Alliance funding we had received. And so we did upgrade our pump slightly through that. And we do expect to see some cost savings through those VFD drives on those pumps there. We also completed some repairs to the steam room, which we had started repairs during the COVID closure. There's a few things to fix in there and to upgrade. Those were the major repairs. For the most part, the rest of it was annual maintenance, cleaning, more thorough cleaning that can be completed while the pool is open. And we're happy with the condition the aquatic center's in. There were a couple further improvements that were identified through the inspections and the maintenance, but we've identified those either for 2022 O&M projects or capital projects, which I believe will be presented to council in future meetings. Our current hours are slightly lower than they were in spring 2021. We have 2 early bird swims that we cannot offer at this time because we're a little short staffed. That being said, our aquatic supervisor has been providing a lot of staff training and doing recruitment locally. And we do expect to be back to normal hours in October. And we should have just about a full complement of staff in October. The only position that we're having a hard time filling still at this point is our second full-time permanent lifeguard position. At this point, we have 1 full-time senior lifeguard. We normally would have a second full-time senior lifeguard, but right now we're filling that second position with casual lifeguards, and they can't offer the same coverage as a full-time employee would. Swimming lessons are expected to resume in October. Advertisements should be out by the end of the week for those swimming lessons. And I think I've previously mentioned, but our beach attendant program ended on August 29th with very good numbers at that, very good numbers and very good feedback as is outlined in the July-August monthly report. The ice plant will be started up next week, September 20th, 21st. We'll have our Alberta contractor in town to do that startup. And we expect the Aurora Ford Arena ice surface to be ready for the public by October 4th at the latest. The curling club expects to have their ice ready shortly after. I've been in communication with the curling club representatives as well as representatives from the local ice user groups. Groups at this point seem to be happy with the dates we're projecting, and with the ice schedules I've communicated for the skating ice surface. User groups are also receiving their approvals from the OCPHO relative to COVID-19 guidelines. Guidelines are not as restrictive as they were last year, and user groups will should be able to return to a bit more of a normal play and normal use of our facilities if things remain the same in town here. Fall youth and fitness programming have resumed. Our after school programs are full, I believe, on every day. There might be one day of the week where it's not quite full, where there's 1 or 2 spots remaining. We've also added cross sport dry land training, which is offered currently is offered 2 days a week for a younger group, and also on Friday afternoons while school is out for more of a preteen teenage group. That program is registrations were very good for that, and the kids seem to be enjoying that very much. That program is delivered by a rec programmer. We've also begun instructor-led fitness classes and that's going well also. Some of the classes didn't fill up quite right away. We're receiving a lot of questions, and I think people are kind of gauging interest in some of those programs. What we're very happy with is that our seniors fitness classes that we're offering we're seeing better numbers than we had in the past, and having a lot of our older adults in town that are stopping by the rec center and asking about those classes and looking at joining those classes also. Other programs that are well attended, like I mentioned before, are youth fitness classes, which is the cross-sport training class. Registrations were full for that, and we're actually increasing the number of classes in October. We're also seeing good feedback and good attendance from parent and taught type of programs where mom or dad have their kids at the pool or doing other activities, and they're taking advantage of some of the classes that we're offering up in the multipurpose fitness room. So those are the updates regarding operations. Our maintenance staff are still shutting down some of the outdoor facilities. So at this point, the shutdowns that are remaining are the ball diamonds. There's a bit more shutdown to be done there. Shouldn't be much, a day or two to close those off for the season. Port Landing seasonal slip season closes on September 15th. We've sent out communications to the seasonal slip holders. Most of the boats are out of the water already, and we do expect that we'll be able to do our shutdown there and do the annual dredging that we do there. We should be able to do that by the end of October, I believe. And the Fisherman's Wharf Pavilion, the Saturday market continues until September 25th. We are putting up the walls on the pavilion next week, and we'll do a full shutdown after September 25th, which will include winterizing the building and having it ready in case there are any off-season rentals at that location. Port Landing, with the recent drop in water levels, we were able to start and nearly complete the repairs on the south retaining wall. We had received funding from a couple different sources for that repair. We're very happy that is near completion, and we're satisfied with the work, which we worked through the tender, which was awarded in 2020. Our contractor is confident that the work will be completed. And we're also looking at maximizing on the work that can be completed in 2020. Given the high water levels we've had in the last couple of years, I think and the funding that we have at hand, I think it's important that we try to maximize how much work we can complete. So we are looking at options for the north retaining wall, which also saw some impact to flooding in the spring of this year. One point I wish to mention is that we did drop off some sports equipment to West Point First Nation at the West Channel Playground. We dropped off a couple soccer nets, basketball net, and a bit of sports equipment there. That was part of the communications we had received from them, and it was an easy thing for us to support them that way, and it gives kids in West Channel some extra recreation opportunities out at the village there. We have a rec committee meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, September 21st. I'll be presenting some of the Recreation Department governing documents and seeking input from the committee to revise those documents and get approval on the 2022 versions of those documents. So those are the recreation policy, recreation rates, and I'll also be seeking their input on some of the items that we're proposing for the 10-year capital plan, some of the recreation items that we're proposing. Lastly, Save Pond Hockey, which was brought up to council previously, a bit of an addition to the Polar Pond Hockey event, which has happened many times in the last few years in Hay River. So we're still working with that organization. We've received an MOU at this point. I've reviewed it briefly, but I will forward it on to Polar Pond Hockey representatives. We'll review more thoroughly and move towards having an MOU that all parties are prepared to sign. But we are progressing in that agreement, and I think it should be an exciting event for the town in and around March 2022. Those are my updates at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from council? None being noted. Back to SAO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. We'll go next to the Director of Public Works. Before we do that, I just wanted to, I think council is aware, but for the public's notice as well, that the Director has submitted his resignation, unfortunately, with the town, and he'll be moving on to greener pastures, maybe, or at least into pastures that have less snow and more green grass. But anyways, just wanted to just publicly thank the Director for the service that he's had over the last couple of years here, and advancing a very important profile for the organization. So we wish him good luck. Now to the Director for his update.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, SAO Smith. Just to mention off the top, I did receive a call from CN last week on Wednesday regarding that crossing by the Rooster there and the work that they are intending to do this year on fixing that crossing up. So the work is in their schedule and they're planning on getting it done. Public works side of things, our guys have been still working on a lot of the drainage work recently. There was pictures sent out to council today of the work that's been completed on Lakeshore Drive, just raising the road up a little bit, getting the water off the road. It's still going to be a little bit of a trouble area, but at least the water will be contained to the ditches there. We've also relocated the mailbox so it's more accessible to the residents and they don't have to go through trek through some puddles to get their mail. In the West Channel area, on the drainage side of things, we've been working on clearing the ditches, clearing the outlets that flow out to the river there in order to encourage movement of the water and getting the storm system working as it's intended to. Other areas of town, we're working on some designs and plans for areas that have been brought to our attention, and hoping to get into that work this fall so that everything's draining a little better next spring when we get to spring melt. On our capital projects, on Caribou, Crescent. They're doing prep work today and tomorrow with asphalt going down starting on Thursday. And that should be a pretty quick 1 or 2 day process to get the asphalt down on Caribou. And then still working on some yard restorations there, but that project's getting closer to completion. Riverview and Beaver, they are continuing to progress down down Riverview Drive. And then after they complete that work, they'll move on to Beaver, which should be fairly soon here. We have been working with any citizens that have contacted us, just informing them, giving them information on what's happening, working with our contractor and our consultant to minimize the ditching as much as possible there. And also on that project, the lift station that's required on Beaver has now been installed. They're working on getting it hooked up and operational, but it's another item that has happened there. On our bigger lift station project, work continues there. A lot of concrete still going in there. They this past week, I believe they've been working on pouring the main slab over top of the wet and dry wells there. There's some electrical work that's happening as well this time. Our zoning bylaw project, today we received a couple of reports from our consultants. The first one is a what we heard report. So it kind of summarizes the engagement that they've done and the feedback they've gotten. They still have a little bit more engagement to do, but they wanted to get this report to us to take a look at. The second is their recommendations of changes we should be looking at through our bylaw review and update. We haven't really had a chance to go through either of the reports yet, as they just arrived this afternoon, but in the coming weeks, we'll go through that and be in touch with the consultant on the next steps there. Our town hall demolition project, we have the tender documents almost ready to go out. They should be out this week. And so that project should be proceeding in the next few weeks here. After the tender period closes, so the work should be able to be completed this fall. Our trucked water delivery contract RFP closed. We're working internally just to identify any issues with the submission on that, and then we'll be working on finalizing that contract so that we do have a new contract in place there. I've also been meeting with consultant regarding the garbage and waste management contract, which will be the next one to go out for RFP so that we can renew that contract as well. And lastly, ENR representative will be up here next week on Wednesday just for their annual fall inspection of our facilities under our water license. So we'll be accompanying them on the rounds to water treatment plant, lagoon, and our solid waste facility during their inspection. Those are my updates for this week.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from Council for our Director of Public Works? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Worship. Just wow at the amount of work that's been done by the Public Works Department for our town. It's amazing the amount of work and projects that are being done. So thank you for that. And thank you for the local contractors that are working with the town. Just on a point on Riverview, I took a drive down there and happened to meet a couple of residents and that type of thing. And I still have concern about that fire hydrant on one of the driveways, and I think we all know which one that is. So if we get further clarification on that, and maybe not tonight, but to determine what can be done or what is able to be done on that. And I noticed too that the driveways, quite a few driveways don't have any culverts, so I'd like to get comment on that. Obviously, the driveway is going to get dug up and culverts put in. And one of the residents said on the other side of the road, you know, it's the tar from the driveways has been plonked there, and it's so it's pretty messy on that side of the road. And you know, I don't know if that could have been handled a little bit differently, but it's it's impacted some of the trees in that area, but you can see it's quite a mess to clean up when it could have probably been done less expensively, perhaps, and done a better job of. But those are the comments. But if I can get feedback on that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. And I look forward to our director's reply. If you can just forward that all to all council, that would be great. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Dewey, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just on the asphalt for Caribou, I'm not sure where we're at on our patching program for this fall, or if that's going to be taking place around the same time, or what the schedule is on that. Typically, when we have asphalt coming in, it's kind of done all at once. I'm just wondering what the schedule looks like for that.
Thank you. SCO Smith?
Thank you, Worship. And if you want, we could probably speak now to the questions that Councillor Anderson raised, and if more details are needed, we can follow up. But I'll start anyways with Councillor Dewey's question. So yeah, we did go out for proposals. We received one proposal or a quotation actually on it, and we're reviewing it now. We had some concerns with the pricing and some questions with some of the calculations on the fill levels, but we're still working with them right now and evaluating what percentage we might want to go forward with. So a bit more there, and we can provide an update probably at our next meeting or prior to that if council would like. With respect to the other questions, do you want us to, Mayor Jameson, to?
Sure, go ahead.
I'll pass that to the Director of Public Works. I always speak to him, but you can probably speak to them in more detail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will hold off on the fire hydrant one and provide response via email for that. With respect to the culverts through the driveways, yeah, they will be going back and installing culverts through all of the driveways that they need to. I know they're not in place at this time, but they will be put in. And the, I guess, dirt and material that's been pushed up on the other side of the road, we have noted this. We have brought it to the attention of our consultant and our contractor, and they're well aware that it is the contractor's responsibility to make sure that's clean and back to the state it was prior to the project. We do have pre-construction photos, and we will hold them to removing that and getting it back to how it was. Just with regards to, I guess, both of those issues, is we don't really get into dictating to or telling the contractor how they should be doing the job. It's more just telling them what we need done and letting them determine the ways and means of doing that. So if they choose not to put the culverts in at the beginning and then go back later in the project and put the culverts in the driveway, as long as it gets done to our designs by the end, that's all we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Dewey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just one more question on that Review Drive. I had an email from a resident today. I believe that I had written the address down here. 87 Riverview. I think director likely is aware of the issue there by the sounds of it. Some trees, I guess, that were damaged during the construction there on Review Drive that are supposed to be, I guess, removed by the town and or by the contractor. I'm just checking on to see if we have a date when that can happen, or if we know any more on that, if that's something that the resident can expect in the near future, I guess, before the snow flies.
Thank you. Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. I received an email from that resident as well. We do have our weekly meeting coming up tomorrow, and it is on my list of questions to ask the contractor if they have a date for that. They have committed to doing it before the end of the construction season this year, though.
Thank you, Director. Anything further from council? Nothing noted. Back to SCO Smith.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to add too on the asphalt material that's on the trail side there. They're also, like, they have been doing some excavation work and dealing with power lines, things like that. So there's a lot that goes on in a pretty compressed area there. So certainly we look forward to the cleanup when the project's completed. For myself, several items I'll kind of bounce around here, and I apologize if I hit on a couple that were already brought up by our directors. We do meet on several topics together. We did have a kickoff meeting today with the NWT Housing Corporation and their consultant Planet to discuss the planning and schedule for the development of our community housing plan. So really looking forward to getting this document completed. It's they're a little behind schedule. It is owned by the NWT Housing Corp, but we are partnered in it through a contractual agreement actually. So anyways, discussions on the steering and advisory committee formation and schedule. So they're hoping to start establishing that in mid-October. So some of the promotion for that will be coming out here very soon to the public. We then move forward with the research and needs assessment. Community engagement will take place from essentially November into the spring period. Then they'll work on the plan development and a targeted wrap up in end of March, early April. So something that we'll be able to bring forward to the new council. And also had a interview with Dylan Consulting today as part of phase 1 environmental site assessments that are being completed for 4 properties that MTS surrendered their leases to back to the town as part of the NTCL sale. So I should say this is phase 1 that's being conducted right now. It's more of an interview process to understand how the properties were used over the years. And they are still scheduling that phase 2 to be completed this year, which is more intrusive with drilling and sampling. Had a meeting this week earlier with the Territorial Agricultural Association and a couple of their members, Kevin Wallington and Alex McMeekin, to discuss the function of this, what is a sort of a new association separate from the Territorial Farmers Association and NIFTY, and opportunities really better understand the organization and any opportunities to support agricultural developments and food security in South Slave. So there were several kind of takeaways. One that I passed forward to council now and probably for consideration by the new council is a suggestion that we consider a council liaison that can meet with their association and check in with them. I'm not sure if that's been done in the past with the Territorial Farmers Association, but it's a request for consideration. We're working quite a bit, all our directors, myself, on our 10-year capital plan revision, which is scheduled to go to committee before end of this month and then to council, this council. It was December 2020 when we brought the last revision, which was a pretty thorough plan that included funding arrangements for the length of that plan. So we've taken another crack and identified new assets, primarily replacement assets that are needed, especially on public works infrastructure, just through new knowledge gained by our staff since then. And it'll provide a very comprehensive look at what's really in front of council and administration for the next 10 years and what the competition for dollars looks like. With respect to our land MOU, so we have a land MOU established with the Department of Lands. It's been around for many years now. Administration met just to look at the properties or lands that were identified that were still an opportunity to transfer over to the town of Hay River from the commissioner as part of fee simple title transactions. So a lot of the properties are, easements and probably properties that aren't a lot of value, but still something that the town we think should be considering for taking fee simple ownership of. So we will be working. This is under the Director of Finance Administration on bringing a lot of these properties to council in the next couple of meetings, probably through an omnibus style approach for some of them. I participated in returning officer training the other week, which is conducted by Municipal and Community Affairs. Our returning officer, our designated contractor, Heather Coquell, also attended. So it was good to learn and get education on some of the processes and timelines and considerations. A reminder to the public that there is the deadline is September 20th for nominations for council and mayor. There has been some promotional material sent out. We'll be sending out some more, and we're working with our returning officer to help with that promotion, as is the NWT Association of Communities. I'll note on an HR front that our HR manager is arriving into town this week on Friday, and I'll be preparing this week his orientation and work plan, working with some staff on that. But he starts on Monday, so looking forward to his arrival. The trucked water RFP story, again, if this was already mentioned, I don't think so, but the trucked water RFP closed the other week, and we did receive one bid submission through it. So administration is reviewing that tomorrow, and we'll be going through the next steps associated with trying to work towards a contract. Meetings with NTPC on our electrical franchise are continuing. Again, we meet monthly. There's some conversations going on around outside of that. They've submitted, there's several documents really that NTPC and NUL, the town of Hay River, are working through. An operating agreement was developed and shared between the parties this week, I think. And there's some more ancillary agreements that we're expecting to see for review as soon as end of this week. We also have a meeting scheduled with the Premier next week, the Premier and some of the cabinet ministers, to discuss the franchise committee and some of the franchise opportunities. And that meeting would be with the mayor and representatives of that franchise, our franchise committee. Internally, we're doing some digitizing of our historical records here at Town Hall. So a lot of records in accordance with our records management policy. We're starting to put into digital formats, get them scanned, and so that we have those available in a medium that's more well protected and accessible. We had a meeting as well, the Director of Public Works and Services and myself with Stantec to discuss our Shoreline flood mitigation project, specifically around the area of erosion on the Alaska Drive, which is at West Point First Nations area. And that erosion's led to the road closure there. So that's one of the priority areas that we are focusing on that shoreline area. We do have a meeting scheduled this week, myself, the Director of Public Works and Services, and the Mayor with West Point First Nation to review the options and discuss potential partnerships for repair and expansion of the berm in that area. Our community plan amendment, which received second reading at our last meeting of council, that includes the rezoning of 10 Vail Island properties or lots from, I believe it's outdoor space to residential. That was submitted to the minister, a nice 70-page package, I believe, that went out to them. So we are waiting for her review of that, or sorry, his review of that now, and hopeful approval before bringing to third reading by council. And a note for me, the LGANT, the Local Government Administrators of the Northwest Territories, is holding their annual conference next week. It was previously scheduled to be in person, but given the COVID situation in Yellowknife and throughout the north, it's now being held virtually. So I'll be spending most of my week participating in that and probably multitasking at the same time since it's virtual. Yes, that's our conclusion, or that's the conclusion of our administrative inquiries update, unless there's any questions for us.
Thank you. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Bouchard, go ahead.
Well, you talked about the LGAN meeting being virtual, and I'm just, I guess we're still walking through COVID here, and I know we're on Zoom again tonight, and I'm just wondering what status we have to deem whether we meet in person or whether we meet in Zoom, and then maybe it's administration that's making those decisions, whether we have to wear masks and that type of stuff. So just maybe some discussion. Maybe that's the mayor's call too. I'm not sure. So just why, when and why going forward do we call Zoom meetings versus in-person meetings?
Are you're okay? Tonight was obviously there's a few things that are coming into play, but sometimes it's hard for people to make the meeting because we are in isolation or can't. I think it's a little more difficult having to wear a mask, and quite honestly, for our staff safety, the fewer people that they are in contact with, the better. But with what's going on down south and in Yellowknife, quite honestly, I think it's the safest thing for us to do. Some of us have little children, some of us have grandchildren, some of us have people who are at risk. And so I think it is the safest thing to do. I will put it out there. So if you agree or disagree or for feedback, tonight was because we were going to have a hard time getting everybody together, and it's hard to do half on Zoom and half not, half in person. So if you guys want to give me your feedback on how you feel about it, but I do feel very strongly that, err on the side of caution, and it's all about safety. And right now it's a bit of a mess. So I'll leave that with you. Any further questions for our SAO? Okay, with none being noted, thank you, SAO Smith. And I'm moving on to item number 6A, which is the monthly policing report for August from our RCMP. Any comments? Oh, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Well, I know in the report, it just seems, and I don't know, maybe I'm just hearing through the grapevine, but it seems like we have a lot of drug issues in the community, and it just seems to me that the possession charges seem very low. It's just like in a report that says, six during the whole year. It just seems, I don't know. I know they're in a very tough position with COVID and some of the stuff that's going on, but it just seems like, I'm not sure if that's, the problem's out there. And maybe that's because the lack of courts or the lack of staffing. I'm not sure what the issues are, but it just seems like a number that just stands out to me. If there's an issue, why would there not be some sort of crackdowns and some sort of more charges in those areas?
Yeah, fair enough, Councillor or Deputy Mayor. I too, that did stand out, and I've had that discussion, and it has been noted with the group we're working with on the homelessness and vagrancy issue as well. But yeah, I agree. When everybody in town knows where these drug dealers are living, and it seems like a McDonald's drive-through, 6 seems like something you could do in half an hour if you sat in the right spot. So yeah, I hear your concerns, and I will certainly pass them on. Anything further? Oh, sorry, Councillor, do we go ahead?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just on that, I mean, it's in these reports, though, at least the last few that we've gotten. But there is interest, I guess, on the RCMP side in a sort of a community consultative group. And I think that, what that looks like it's a little late in the game for the term of this council, but it sounds like there's a few of us running again. And if it's whether or not we're here, but or not, might be something that the next council looks at, whether that be sort of a revamp or shift in direction, or maybe involving just some of the same people as that interagency group or a new group altogether. I'm not sure, but I think that there is value there. I mean, the more that the RCMP hear from the residents of the community, the better. And if there is actually a group there in place that the RCMP can communicate with and get some feedback on, it can't hurt things. I know I share the frustration, yourself and the deputy mayor. It's getting, I would say, out of hand. And I mean, we had somebody walk into my house yesterday. So it's an issue all over the community, and one that doesn't seem to be getting any better on its own.
Fair enough. I hear you, and I too agree. I mean, interagency did a lot of really good work, and unfortunately, it had fallen by the wayside. And I think that, we had our initial meeting. We're going to have another one here this week, and hopefully, that working together for a common goal, we get a solution. Okay, with that, nothing further from council. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to inquire on the RCP housing and how the RCP offices are liking the new houses, and on the duplexes, are they getting built soon, or what's the situation with that? Thank you.
I can't speak for the RCMP. We have had conversations about some of the issues, lawns, stuff like that. But I believe they're working through it with the Housing Corporation. And again, housing will be at the table tomorrow. And I know that administration has met with NWT Housing on our housing plan for Hay River. What that looks like, I'm sure we will get a full report on it. But again, we will be meeting this week with housing, and I will touch base on those issues again. Anything further from council? Okay, nothing noted. We're moving on to item number 7. 7A is the Emergency Services Monthly Report for August. Looking for a motion. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I move that the Council Town of Hay River approves the Emergency Services Activity Report for August 2021 as presented.
Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7B, Municipal Enforcement Monthly Report for August. Need a motion? Councillor Dufert, go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. I move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the Municipal Enforcement Report for August 2021 as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Chambers. Any questions to the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Dewey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, more of a comment. I really appreciate the level of detail that went into this report. It doesn't leave very much room for question.
Yeah, I know, we miss him. Okay, with no further questions, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7C, Public Works Monthly Report for February. Is that correct? Nope, for August. Looking for a motion. Councillor Dufert, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the Public Works Monthly Report for August 2021.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7D, Recreation Monthly Report for July and August. Looking for a motion. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the report entitled Recreation and Community Services Monthly Report for July and August 2021 as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dufert. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7E, Tourism and Economic Development Report for July and August. Councillor Chambers, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the Tourism and Economic Development Report for the months of July and August 2021.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions to the motion, comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just I think it's very interesting to see the amount of travel that's happening throughout the north. You know, like Yellowknife and other communities that they're coming to Hay River. So even during this our current lockdown and pandemic, so very interesting.
Yeah, I did notice as well that we were featured in Travel Awaits as one of the 19 friendliest small towns to visit, and good job, Hay River, way to go. We are friendly. I love it. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I was visiting with the I think she's the director of NWT Tourism, former Hay River resident, town councillor, Natalie DeMarc, and she was saying the other way in Yellowknife, she's seeing lots of people in Hay River traveling that way too. So yeah, and I talking to somebody for Fort Smith a couple weeks ago, they said, "Oh, it's been good for us to travel throughout the north and see stuff." So
Yeah, it's always good to know what's in your own backyard. Sometimes we miss it. Good stuff. Oh, so all in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7F, strategic plan update, and this one I'm going to pass over to SAO Smith for an update.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, we thought it might be worth doing an actual presentation. So you do have the report here. It is in report format, but given that we are near the end of this council's term, and you know, all of these are high priority initiatives that were identified for significant, if not full completion during the term of council in this year, and elections pending here. So I wanted to go into them in a bit more detail and take any questions that you might have. So suggest, if that's okay, that I'll just run through the plan and any questions can be asked at the end, if that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the planning document itself, these are the update itself is around our high priority initiatives, which, as I mentioned, were identified during or reaffirmed essentially some changes during our last major update of the plan that was conducted with council. On the document itself, on the left-hand column, there is the strategy that's highlighted in the kind of the orange color there, and then the initiatives underneath that strategy in white. There's a bit of a description on the column moving to the right, and when our original plan completion date, and then the percent completion, which has a color coding to it. It's a bit of interpretation there, I guess. I have used green for either complete or near completion or on target. The yellow is behind schedule or a medium risk of not meeting the scheduled completion date, and red is where we are behind schedule or at high risk of not meeting that meeting the schedule for the initiative. So I'll start with the first item here. I'll move fairly quickly through these since you have the report. But the first strategy was around completing a human resource plan to achieve our desired outcomes for our high priority initiatives in this plan. So how do we ensure that we have resources to execute the high priority initiatives? So that was completed some time ago, near the beginning of this, when through our human resource manager in my office, that was completed, and yeah, we moved forward with executing. If there was any additional resources we felt that were needed to support the plan, such as consultants, we attempted to do that. And the next strategy is along communicating information that is relevant, timely, and easily accessible to the public. So again, these are not all initiatives. Some of the medium and low are not, they're not on this update, but they are in our plan and scheduled for future years. That takes us into 2023. But the initiatives that were identified for high priority, one, this strategic plan in itself, prepare a strategic plan summary report and use it to inform the public and council and keep us all organized towards meeting in alignment towards completing these initiatives. So yes, that was 100% completed. It was updated. We created scoping documents for all the high priority initiatives, which go into much more detail that is used by administration to its knowledge management and ensure we understand the steps that are needed to meet the objectives. The second was around our website refresh and process mapping. So primarily an update to the website. So to improve some of the information or update stale information. We're very near completion of this. We've identified at one point 85 updates and enhancements, and there's only a few remaining that are with our consultant, and plan to have those posted this month. It's always a evolving area for communication, but nonetheless, our targets are very close to completion this month. The snow removal public messaging. So as council's well aware, always the hot topic in the cold season of snow removal and prioritization and qualities and such. So there was the desire to get more of an update to our snow removal policy, which we have, which outlines prioritizations. We didn't get to a full update of that. We did implement some of our communication around what zones we'll be in, and communicating that through Facebook to give residents awareness. But it was a bit sporadic, so we are looking for improvements into the winter season. Sorry, there was a message that just popped up from Councillor Willows. Sorry, did you have a question, Councillor Willows? Okay, I see. It's just asked to send it in a Word document. Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with your presentation. It was just an ask with regard to this document. So yeah, carry on. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. We can share this in a format for all council that's outside of this package. Into the next strategy around ensuring policies and bylaws are current. So this council's done a lot, and administration's done a lot of work on our bylaws, I would suggest, and some of them are quite major. So the first one here, and this isn't a complete listing again, but you know, that prioritization plan sits with the bylaw and policy committee. And yeah, I think almost all of them on that list have been completed for this year or well into completion. I'll provide an update on some of them. So the first one was bylaw 619, which is our garbage collection, and bylaw 1516, which is outlines our dump tipping fees. So we are at about 80% progress here. And in terms of bylaw 619, the garbage collection, it has gone to our bylaw and policy committee for review and has conditional approval. We need to get some legal consultation and some small changes made there. Probably won't get that update until Q4. And as for the bylaw 1516, the dump tipping fees, so we did roll that into the new approved fees and charges bylaw. And our best suggestion at this point now is to update rates when after completion and addressing our expired landfill management contract. And we are underway with that work with the consultant, and plan to bring it forward in Q1 for 2022 on the outstanding contracts. The next one is the utility bylaw. So that is 100% completed, and that one we completed the third-party cost of service study and rolled the results of that into an approved fees and charges bylaw. The third one, bylaw 1812, is our zoning bylaw. The Director of Public Works provided, I think, an update on that through his report, and maybe tonight on how we went out for RFP completion and stakeholder engagements. This council has met with our partner, our consultant Stantec. They've met with several bodies within the community, several organizations. They met with the public. They completed a survey that had, I think, about 80 respondents at last count. And I think actually today, the Director of Public Works received a draft update. So we're starting to get things onto paper, and it's suggested, although in the report here on our update, it says present to council in October 2021. We're now thinking it's probably best, especially with going through 3 readings, to leave this for the next council, but that can be discussed offline, I guess. Next update is to bylaw 2165. That was the taxi license bylaw. We met, multiple meetings were held with local taxi operators, the bylaw and policy committee, the public, and we identified proposed updates to it. There's a lot of discussion back and forth on it, and that bylaw amendment was approved by council, and we are now enforcing it to a different degree, I guess. Next one is bylaw 2240. That's the management bylaw. And it was a good timing to update that coming out of the completion of a collective agreement with, again, something that this council should be proud of in administration, to sign a 5-year agreement with our union body. But several of the elements there, just wanted to make sure that there was alignment with that. And it includes a 5-year schedule for economic increases for salary and excluded employees. Update to bylaw 2252, which is the financial administration bylaw, and also the new creation of the omnibus bylaw, or we're calling it the omnibus bylaw then. It's now the fees and charges bylaw. Very significant undertaking for the fees and charges, where we consolidated, I think, over 14 bylaws into one bylaw that provides an easy reference document for seeing rates and charges for town residents and companies, and allows us to easily update during budget discussions. And yes, the financial administration bylaw was updated and approved and included changes to some of our reserves, if you recall, and interest charges or interest rates. Last item in this strategy was around the municipal enforcement plan. So we did prepare and present to council for approval a plan that served to guide where our prioritization was around protective services and bylaw enforcement. So that was completed. We were trying to follow it as best as we could. And of course, we have a vacancy now in our bylaw officer, although we do have a consultant that's providing some coverage for it. The next strategy was around completing a land development plan to meet the current and future needs of housing and land development aspects. So one of the important items for this council was Fraser Place subdivision. So it does indicate here 20% completion, but note that the completion date for the project is 2023, and feel that's still achievable. We did complete, and the actual description assigned to this was completing the testing, such as geotechnical, the research, design, rezoning, and pre-sale of housing. So we did complete the geotechnical design. We have a full design. We did a conceptual design, went to the public, presented that to them, and that was approved as part of the rezoning that was needed for that area. So all of that was approved. We are essentially tender ready, and the suggestion is that we wait for Q1 of 2022 to move forward, just given the appropriate time of season for tendering and work around the trees, etc. So good work completed there. It's ready to go as we get into the tendering process. The other was around exploring developer interest in partnering with the town to develop one or more subdivisions, and including in this was to conduct a survey around housing needs and also commercial needs, and then we would go out to expression of interest to developers. So I did provide an update earlier that we are underway with the partnership agreement with the NWT Housing Corporation on the completion of the community housing plan, which again, a very important document for this aspect of land and housing development. And yeah, so while the update here says that we plan to have that consultant agreement completed for Q4 2021, the date that was presented today, again, we only have partial control of this as it's a partnership, is for Q2 2022. Next strategy was around reducing electrical utility costs for consumers, and initiative under that was associated with the power franchise agreement and its renewal. So again, I provided a bit of an update earlier on this. We are at estimated at 85% completion. It's been a long haul to get to this point. There's a lot of fine detailed type agreements and reports and We do need to go through a PUB process. And again, we have that meeting with the Premier scheduled for next week on the topic of how they can support this this franchise and help reduce rates to not only businesses and residents within the north, but as a hub and manufacturing area, that those costs savings can be passed on to other areas. So PUB hearing is scheduled before the end of 2021, but it'll probably take us into completion or a transfer date into Q2 of 2022. From an economic development initiative here, so this was under my office, really just sitting with me, trying to get resources and time to move it forward. It's been a bit difficult, and COVID has had some impact as well. But this one is really around meeting with industry and both local, regional sectors, talking about their economic development plans, what our own plans are, and how we can support each other through that and some of the opportunities that exist. So I think that this is a very important initiative and something that certainly we want to keep pushing forward with and recognize that there's a lot of opportunities in this community and for economic development. Under the aging infrastructure, so we have the capital plan and in the capital budget that has been approved, we are bringing forward a revised capital budget. We have a lot of infrastructure on it, and the ones that are listed here were really around some of the key ones for funding and how do we go about funding the major ones in front of us for this year and multi-year projects. So we've marked this at 85% completion. We submitted over 18 million worth of infrastructure projects through ICIT fund primarily. And we also are working or suggesting that an application that we'll bring forward to council is through the Disaster and Mitigation and Adaptation Fund in Q3 to support the Vail Island Shoreline Flood Mitigation Project. So that may look a little different coming out of meetings with West Point First Nations this week. We are hopeful that we can work with them on funding arrangements. Caribou Crescent, Beaver Crescent, and Riverview Drive. Again, update provided today on where we sit with that. We have another full year before it's marked for completion, so it is in green. Probably at, we've estimated about 65% completion. The underground is near 75% completion. Caribou curb and gutters completed. Paving's going on this week. And yeah, I think that's it. The next one was the replacement of our old town hall. And the specific description under this was to award the demolition contract. So we are behind on this, but actually I think as early as tomorrow or well, let's just say this week, we will be going out for the demolition tendering. And we do have a environmental project management company we've been working on with this for a while now. So the hopes is that we get appropriate pricing that meets budget and can meet the remaining schedule here before we get into too much winter. On the effective infrastructure strategy, the 10-year capital plan, already mentioned that we are bringing forward a revised 10-year plan to this council by end of September 21 or into early October. But we did meet the target already of that 10-year plan in December 2020. So just an enhanced version for you. Next is under ensuring that all town employees have the knowledge and equipment to follow safe practice during the pandemic and that our facilities are operated in compliance with the pandemic. So this was something that came out of nowhere really for all of us. And through the last update was dealing with COVID. It provides it's a lot of overhead for us as an organization and for the community as a whole. But we've done, I think, a very good job at ensuring the safety of our employees. We've developed safe work practices and worked with the Office of the Chief Public Health Officer and WSCC. Those were communicated to staff. We've been procuring PPE. I think the Director of Protective Services mentioned that we just received another order through MACA for our employees, and we do share with the public in some of our facilities. So we're doing very well there, and we mark it as 100%. And continue to obviously monitor and adapt to the changing environment there. The last strategy on the plan that we have for you is to work with other levels of government and Indigenous groups to identify and implement emergency measures for flood mitigation, preparedness, and response. So it just happened that we are meeting with West Point on a key element of that this week. But we were able to secure funding through Climate Change Adaptation Fund. It's been used already for some of our studies and investigations in that area. The Aqua Dam berms were deployed through that. We've been working with MACA, ENR, and even federal departments on issues, concerns, and getting access to dollars. And this was primarily focused on our breakup from last year, which was a bad one, but we got away unscathed really through it. But it's all indicators are that we're probably going to be dealing with a similar type of events this year. So that's the plan in a lot more detail. Open to any questions that you may have right now on any of the specific initiatives or any that are not on here that you expect.
I'm going to get a motion on the floor before we start asking questions. So looking for a motion. Councillor Chambers, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River approve the September 2021 progress update on the 2019-2023 strategic plan as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions? Here we go, guys. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
And no, I think it's a great document, and I know there's some more detail on some of the smaller projects and stuff. I think it's I want to say it's a transparent report card of what's happening over the last 3 years type thing, in the last couple of years at least, since the strategy's been developed. And a lot of it's due to administration. Thank you very much for all the hard work there. But going forward, I think new council, that's one of the first documents they need to work on and review and make plans for the next term to look what the projects are going forward. So yeah, no, it's an excellent job. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Councillor Willows, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to jump in there just after the deputy mayor with COVID and some of the flood preparations and the fires that we've had over the last of this term. It's really remarkable, I guess, when you look backwards and see some of the work that this council has been able to achieve, and it's pretty substantial. And sometimes we need a reminder of where we've been and what we've accomplished. Again, none of this would have been possible, obviously, without administration and the leadership and the work that they've provided both to ourselves and to the community. So I just want to say, great job, good work, and it's a good reminder of where we've been for the last 3 years. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willows. Councillor Dowie.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, not to parrot everyone, but to certainly agree that over the last 3 years, between fires and floods and pandemics, it was good to be able to get anything accomplished. There was times in the term that it kind of felt like we were spinning our wheels a little bit at times, and a little frustrating in some areas, but there was a good volume of work that was being completed even while that was ongoing. So it is a good reminder that the last 3 years weren't the term that never was, as I referred to it in the past. But so again, thank you to administration and to council and yourself.
Thank you. Any further comments from council? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd just like to add that thank the administration and of the town, as well as the employees. So thank you so much, and thanks for the council and mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, I will reiterate that. It is hard to remember how much stuff comes and goes and you forget. So this is a good way of reminding ourselves what we have accomplished and what administration has definitely worked hard to accomplish. So yeah, my thanks to administration, to SEO Smith and his team for a job well done. So with that, I'm looking for, got a motion seconded, all in favor. Thank you, motion carries. Item number 7G, Q2 capital spending results and forecast revenues. Looking for a motion? Councillor Dufert, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the recommendation that the Council of the Town of Hay River accepts the June Q2 2021 financial results with forecast revisions as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 7H is the Q2 consolidated financial statement review and forecast to December 31st, 2021. Looking for a motion? Councillor Dewey, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation that the Council of Town of Hay River approves the June Q2 consolidated financial statement review and forecast update as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Dufert. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. So item 8B, bylaws. Item A is bylaw 2434. I'm just going to speak to a couple things here. So in June of this year, the federal government passed legislation to recognize September 20th or 30th, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliations, as a federal statutory holiday. The GNWT has since established National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as a holiday for NWT public servants under the Public Service Act. As employment legislation evolves to formally recognize the holiday, so basically it has to catch up, the town of Hay River is tabling a proposed bylaw for a declaration of the day as a full day civic holiday for September 30th, 2021. As a community impacted directly by the effects of residential schools and other injustices, it is important to note that this holiday would not be one of celebration, but one of mourning, remembrance, and critical thought on how we as a country and community move forward to heal our relationships and well-being of our Indigenous peoples. On September 30th, the town of Hay River will raise an orange flag as a symbol of reflection and support for future change. We look forward and commit to the evolvement of our relationship with Indigenous peoples within the community. So with that, I'm looking for first reading for civic holiday. Councillor Dewey, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move first reading of bylaw number 2434.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Willows. Any questions? Councillor Dewey, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Certainly not in opposition to the motion. Just a question on, I believe under legislation, municipalities are granted a certain number of days that we can declare civic holidays. I believe it's 2. I could be wrong on that, but
2 days.
So it would be, we do one on Kamba Carnival, and we'll be doing another one now, just so that council is aware and maybe administration. And I could be wrong, but I believe it's 2. So if we do go ahead with this for the rest of the calendar year, that will be the end of our civic holidays that we can grant.
SAO Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So I'm not familiar with the allowances council or administrator maybe, but I just wanted to point out that I believe the Kamba Carnival is a half day.
And in March of next year. So this
we did have it this year. Or did we have it this year? Yes, we did, right?
Virtually.
Yeah.
But they did,
I believe we still made the motion for the civic holiday.
correct.
Yeah,
It's 2 a year. If that's the amount, and the Canberra Carnival would be 2022. This would, and Canberra Carnival is half a day, so this would be, hopefully takes us through to the end.
Okay, so we could be left with half a day.
We could be left with half a day, that's
Again,
correct.
not in opposition. I just wanted to make sure that we're actually legislatively allowed to do this. And I think we're okay, but I would like confirmation on that.
Fair enough. So if we get first and second reading tonight, it's not going to pass without third reading anyways, so we'll get clarification before the following, what's our next meeting, September 28th? Cutting her close. Is that good with you, Councillor Dewey?
Just a thought, maybe your worship, if it helps administration. I know sometimes the banks and whatnot like to have a couple days heads up that this is coming. So maybe we have a special meeting before our next committee meeting or something, and then do third reading on it then.
Fair enough. Councillor or SEO Smith.
yeah, just I think to provide a bit of input on that, because the declaration of a civic holiday. So this, part of the reason that it is in front of us right now, because it hasn't moved through all the Employment Act regulations. And as such, then it's not a legislated holiday for all employee types. So this would only apply to municipal civil servants, and the private sector would have their own discretion on what they do with that day. So banks, they should have a decision. They should be open to whatever decision they want, is my understanding, as it's not an Employment Act yet.
As the legislation catches that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's also worth mentioning, I mean, this council is making decisions now for up until the period of end of October, November 1st, right? So, I don't know if there's another anticipated day. This is the only civic holiday or national territorial holiday that we've been made aware of. So, I don't know that there would be another half day or other day that you've identified as potentially being out there, just as information in case you want to, consider advancing that today.
Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder, is that correct? Okay, any other questions, comments? All in favor of first reading? Thank you, motion carries. Second reading, Councillor Dewey?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move second reading of bylaw number 2434.
Thank you, second by Councillor Dufert. All in favor? Thank you, motion carries. And with that, we are going to go in camera. So before I look for that, I'm going to ask each of you to turn on your mics. There, I can see you all. So do you solemnly swear and sincerely affirm that you are alone and cannot be overheard while in camera? Councillor Dufert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I swear.
Councillor Willows.
I swear.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I swear.
Councillor Bouchard.
I swear.
Councillor Chambers.
I swear.
Councillor Dewey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I swear.
Okay, looking for a motion to go in camera. Councillor Dufert, seconded by Councillor Chambers, all in favor? Thank you. So I have 8 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 8:04. Thanks, guys. And thanks, administration and our directors.
Yep, thank you. No other members from administration is needed for in camera.